Our next step is going to be to add the timer bar to the bottom of the player's view. So let's start off by opening up the content browser and we'll take a quick look at this. Here's the UI timer UI scene. So you see it's just a little capsuloid shape and there's a little ticking timer bar in the middle of it. Now these are two separate objects, each powered by their own material. It is important to note that we have switched off we switched on always render scene, so that's been activated. We have switched off display cursor, and we've switched off pause game while active. Now that effectively turns this into a heads-up display, so it's always going to be visible during gameplay. So let's close this out. We'll take a quick look at the materials applied. So the timer bar background is pretty straightforward. It's just a texture that's being multiplied to give it some emission, and it gives us this kind of capsuloid shape that looks really funny when you stretch it around a sphere like that. Now if we come over to the timer bar, all this is a series of dashes that have a alpha channel, so they have an alpha that's sweeping across to hide it. Now a couple of parameters in here. We have param flashing. This is whether or not the result should be flashing. And we have flash speed. So this controls how quickly it's going to flash based on the network. So let's go ahead and close this. And we'll immediately jump into Kismet and start setting things up. Now we're going to begin by setting up a new event to drive all this. This will be a level loaded. And we're going to base everything off of the beginning of the level. Now, as soon as the level begins, we want to open up our UI scene for the timer. So I'll right-click, go to New Action, come down to UI Scenes, and click Open Scene. We'll plug this into Beginning of Level. We don't really need to do the scene variable bit. We can just plug this right in. So let's close Kismet for a moment, grab the content browser, and make sure that in the UI Scenes group we grab UI Timer. Then we can close this, go back into Kismet, and plug this into the scene property of our open scene sequence. So now we're going to open up our timer, and we could test it even at this point. If we just jump right into the game, we now see our timer. Now the timer is already flashing, don't worry about that, that's part of the material. We're going to fix that through the material instance constant that's actually applied. Now, to talk to a material instance constant, we have to have a material instance actor. So let's go over to the actor classes browser. Let's grab a material instance actor, and we'll right-click way out here in space and choose Add Material Instance Actor here. Now, I'm going to put it up in the air because it's easier to see, and I'm going to scale it up 3 times just as a personal preference so it's nice and big. If at any point I need to grab it, it's like the moon. Alright, so now with that selected, let's open up its properties, and we need to plug the appropriate material instance in here. So we'll open up the content browser, go under the material instance group, and here's MIC timer bar. Plug that in, and we are good to go. So now we can just talk to this material instance actor inside of Matinee. So make sure you still have this material instance actor selected. Jump into Kismet. We'll right-click and choose New Matinee, and we'll plug the success of the open scene into the play of the Matinee. Now, double-click the Matinee to open it. Immediately right-click and create a new empty group, which we will call Timer Bar Mat. And click Enter. Okay, so now we're going to add a couple of parameter tracks to this. So go ahead and right-click, and we'll do a new float material param track. In the param name, put flashing, because that is the name of the parameter that we're talking to. And at time 0, go ahead and press Enter. Right-click, make sure the value is 0. It should be by default, but as a habit, I always double-check that sort of thing. Now, I'm going to send this up to the curve editor. So click on the little tiny black box at the end of the track itself. Select the key up here in the curve editor, and make sure you click on the constant tangent type button. That means we're going to hold this value until the next keyframe. Now the next keyframe is not going to be until 90 seconds later. The whole game is going to have a 120 second time limit, and at 90 seconds we're going to have the announcer give a 30-second warning. So I'm going to zoom way out, grab our little red flag for the end of the sequence, and pull this out to about 120. In fact, pull it out to exactly 120, because currently I'm snapping to half a second, which makes that a whole lot easier. Now, let's grab our time slider, we'll move this out to 90, And make sure we're still selecting the float material param track and press enter. Now that's at 90.5. That's not what I want. So let's right click, choose set time, and just set that to a flat 90, and that jumps back. Now right click it again, set the value to 1, and you'll notice up here in the curve editor that we held 0 all the way to this point and immediately jumped up to 1. That's going to activate flashing like a switch. Now come back up to your timer bar matte group, right click, add another float material param track. And for the param name, we're going to use flash speed. We're going to start off here at 90 seconds and select the float material param track for flash speed, press enter to add a new keyframe. And we're going to right click and make sure that the value is at 0. This means as soon as we start flashing, our overall flash speed is going to be 0. As we progress forward in time up to 120, we're steadily going to get faster. So slide all the way to 120, add another keyframe, right-click, and set its value to 8. So we'll just keep going faster and faster and faster and faster until time is up. Okay, so now we're going to add some sounds. Let's just deselect everything, right-click, create a new empty group, which I will name Sounds. Noises. And we'll come back here to 90 seconds. Grab our sound track. Now, we need to select a sound in the content browser. So let's close Kismet back here in the background. Let's open up the content browser. We'll jump into the sound cues group. And down here at the bottom, we see cue 30 seconds. So let's jump over here, select our sounds track, press enter, and no active track selected. You know what? Because I didn't add a soundtrack. Failure. So right-click and add a soundtrack. Now we press enter, and everybody's happy. Okay, so now we need to do a 10-second countdown. Now that's going to start at 110. So right here at 110, we need to select the 10-second cue over here in the content browser, jump back over here to Matinee, click on the soundtrack, and press enter. And now we're just going to go every second. So at 111, we'll grab 9 and press enter. Now let's zoom in, make this a little easier to see. At 112, and you'll notice it doesn't have to be exact as long as you're snapping. We'll grab 8. Press enter at 113. We're going to grab 7, so you see how the pattern goes, but I got to go through the motions anyway, so just get comfy. Or by all means, use your scrub bar. And grab 5, and 4, and 3. I mean, I suppose we could have made a sound cue that just automatically counted down, but that wouldn't have been stoppable. And then again, it would have just another way to do it. And then 1 second. Now, we need to tell them that they've lost. So let's come out here to 120. And let's grab the game over cue. And we'll drop that at 120. Now, let's play back through this.
3, 2, 1.
And we get nothing for that last key. Make sure you select that key, and then down here inside the properties, click Continue Sound on Matinee End, and slide the little divider over so you can actually read that. So Continue Sound on Matinee End. Now let's test that again. Whoop, I think I just added another sound. I didn't mean to do that. Delete that. Okay.
3, 2, 1.
And you'll notice that even at 120, you're still not getting playback of that last key. So right-click on that key and come over here to set time and set this to something like 19.998. I mean, alternatively, you could take the overall time of your matinee and kick it up to maybe 120.05 seconds if you really wanted to. Now, I've set that to 19. Let me undo that. That was silly what I just did because I wanted 119. So set time, so 119.95. That should be close enough that nobody would really notice.
1. You have lost the match.
And if you, like I said, if you really wanted to be hardcore about it, you could maybe pull the overall time of your animation out to, say, 120.5. Come here, you. There we go. So pull it out to about there, and then we could just set this guy to 120. So either way you want to do it is fine. Like if you feel it would be unfair to call time just one little 100th of a second early, then you can fix that. But in order to really fix it, I've got to really pull down snapping. So let's pull that down, and this will go all the way back to, there we go. So that's 120.01 seconds.
2, 1. You have lost the match.
See, now it plays. So either way, you can pull back the you have lost cue, so it's just before 120, or you can stretch things out. It's really not going to make a significant difference. Okay, so now let's close out of Matinee. And we'll close out the content browser. And let's go back into Kismet. So we've got our material instance actor, which is setting up a time. We've got, what else we have? We've got our playback of our countdown. What else is left? It seems like, oh yeah, we need to tell the player that they just lost and they have to try all over again. Now, earlier we did this by setting our endgame menu variable to UI game over, and then we called on endgame. We also played a sound, but we don't need to play a sound because we've already played one. So what I'm going to do is grab our object set variable, grab endgame menu, grab UI game over, grab activate remote event, and hit Control C, slide down here, and hit Control V. Break the little connections, and now from completed, we can plug into the object, and from the object we can plug into remote event. But we don't want to use the game over UI. We actually have a special UI. Let me show it to you. If I select the UI game over, we can show that in the content browser. And we have a special one called UI times up. It's basically the exact same UI scene, just with a different message. So we'll select that, and we will drop that into the place of game over, and we should be set to go. Now, if you want to test this out, and this is going to sound really weird, but if you want to try it, let's come down to the play rate, and we'll kick this up to, say, 3, and let's test this out. Now, you have to ignore the fact that our material is actually still going to move at normal speed. So our announcer is going to kick in 3 times as early as she should, but the timer bar on the bottom will still look normal. So don't worry about that. The good news is that she should be warning us here very shortly, here in just a few seconds. I'm so impatient.
30 seconds left.
Okay, that's working.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You have lost the match.
There we go. And there's end game. We've lost control, and we're fading to black, and we're all set to go. So that worked out very well, and everything seems to be in order. So let's grab all this, and let's hit C to open up a comment block, and let's call this timer control. I'm going to go back in my Matinee, now that I'm done testing, and make sure that I set the play rate back to 1 so we don't have any other kind of craziness. And I'm going to hold down Control and Alt and grab all this stuff and just kind of slide it up here. And I think that's everything for now. Yeah, go ahead and save your level, and then we will continue after this.